AudioGo presents By the Rivers of Water, a 19th-century Atlantic Odyssey by Erskine Clarke. This book is read by Myron Willis. And he shall be like a tree, planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth fruit in his season. Psalm 1, verse 3. King James Version. Preface. By the Rivers of Water is a history set in the midst of a 19th-century Atlantic world. It is a story of a strange odyssey by a young white couple from the Georgia and South Carolina Low Country, who left plantation homes and the elegant little city of Savannah and sailed ocean highways to West Africa. There they lived for 17 years, first in a cottage above the pounding surf at Cape Palmas, and later in a cottage by the broad waters of the Gabon estuary. Odysseus-like, they sailed along what was for them an exotic coastline, and sometimes ventured up great rivers and followed ancient paths. They encountered different peoples, found cultures that evoked both admiration and horror, and visited landscapes of great beauty and waiting dangers. But unlike Odysseus, they did not undergo in their travels a journey from a great estrangement to a spiritual restoration. This was no odyssey from a war-torn city to a longed-for home. Rather, their odyssey was a journey into a wider world and into an expansion of the human spirit. And their return to home was a return that followed the call of familiar voices, places, and scenes, a seductive call that emerged from deep within their memories and that echoed in their hearts. They returned because they were unable to resist the voice of a beckoning southern homeland, unable to ignore the call of those who had loved them since their childhood, unable to abandon those who were waiting at home for them. By the Rivers of Water is the story of John Leighton Wilson and his wife, Jane Bayard Wilson, the best-known and most influential American missionaries in West Africa during the first half of the 19th century. Around their story, with all of its startling contradictions and deep ambiguities, are gathered the stories of other men and women whom they encountered on their odyssey. Gullah slaves from Georgia and Philadelphia bankers, Grebo kings and a brilliant young woman at Cape Palmas, Portuguese slavers and African slave traders, African-American colonists in Liberia, white missionaries, black missionaries, Mpongwe kings, and merchants in Gabon, French imperialists, and South Carolina secessionists. Here in this Atlantic world, in the midst of this cacophony of disparate voices, cultures, and societies, the Wilsons made their way, guided, they believed, by a divine providence. On their journey, they found their lives entangled not only with the lives of diverse peoples, but also with the landscapes through which they traveled, which reached out to embrace and engulf them in the sights and sounds and tastes of particular places. The Wilsons were members of affluent, and, in the case of Jane, aristocratic families in Georgia and South Carolina. Their grandfathers had been officers in the American Revolution: Major General Lachlan McIntosh, Colonel Bubenheim Bayard, and Captain John James, son of Major John James. Through the Bayards, they were closely connected to the families of prominent bankers and physicians in Philadelphia, to U.S. senators in Delaware, lawyers in New York, and professors in New Jersey. Through the Wilsons, they were part of a dense network of increasingly prosperous planting families who, through the labor of their slaves, were turning Sumter County in South Carolina into one of the wealthiest regions in the nation. When Leighton and Jane Wilson decided to become missionaries in West Africa, many of their family members and friends were deeply alarmed. The Protestant missionary movement was young, and to many of the Wilsons' contemporaries, their decision to become missionaries appeared quixotic, if not fanatical. And to go to Africa